Welcome back, All Sports West New York. Tim Graham of the Buffalo News, my guest in studio. We just talked about Fred Jackson. Let's quickly talk about LaShawn McCoy, who got a, I think for the Buffalo Bills. Is he the highest paid running back ever in the history of the Buffalo Bills?
Well, I think. I mean,
I just thought of that. I wonder.
Stands to reason.
I mean, I'm wondering, inflation. I mean, Thurman, ended up with a couple of good comments. But
it's
anyway,
like Mario Williams being the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. It's, you're always going to be setting the record.
Right. So he's coming to town. How do you think he's going to fit in with the rest of this team?
I don't know a lot about LaShawn McCoy in terms of how he's going to mesh. I understand that he has a complicated personality, and that played some of the role in him being traded away from Philadelphia. But I think that he brings some star power to this locker room, and I think that he captures everyone's attention, both on the team and in the fan base and nationally. This is a guy that, when it comes time to do your fantasy football draft in a few months, is going to be considered a first-round pick, and the Bills generally don't have those. I'm not saying that means anything to the Bills' success, but that's a mainstream relevancy factor that the Bills just aren't used to. I guess you go back to what? Terrell Owens or something like that. To have an offensive weapon that people know in Iowa, right, or in Washington State, that people are going to know about this running back for the Buffalo Bills, and they're going to be paying attention. But the crazy stat is that he is a year younger than C.J. Spiller and has more career touches than Fred Jackson, and that is a red flag. Here's a guy who's been run hard, and Chip Kelly did not hesitate to give him the ball. He has a ton of carries, a ton of contact. His numbers fell off last year, so that's something that the Bills are going to have to watch, and it lends to what we were talking about before the commercial about the Bills still feel like they need to stock up on running backs. They need more insurance policies with this type of offense they're going to run. Okay, I mentioned this earlier, we're recording the show earlier in the day. The free agency period starts at 4 o'clock, so I'm not going to put any pressure on you. People at 6:30 the Bills could have already signed somebody. You think the Bills are going to be, let's put it this way, you think the Bills will be very active in free agency? I do, and the names that I've heard most of all, is Charles Clay. Now, he has the transition tag on him from the Miami Dolphins, so the Dolphins are going to have 7 days to match any offer. He's the tight end for Miami. He's the tight end for the Miami Dolphins. He is priority number one for the Bills, and they want him badly. He does a lot for them. He adds, Greg Roman loves tight end play in his offense and his play calling, so he adds an element there. We already talked about the blocking side of it. He helps in the run game, helps in the pass game, and is a short passing types, target for a quarterback, which you need when you don't have great quarterback play. You need those guys who can catch the ball 5, 4, 3, 2 yards from the line of scrimmage to be able to turn it into something. That's what Charles Clay can do. From there, you're looking at the Green Bay Packers tackle. Brian Bulaga is a name that I've heard a couple of times in the past 2 days from multiple people in different realms of the NFL community, so that lends some credence to Brian Bulaga being a guy they want to go after. They missed out on Mike Iupati, the San Francisco 49ers guard, who the Arizona Cardinals came in and got. So on the line, I think that Brian Bulaga is a guy they really look at. All right, they've traded for Matt Castle. What are the Bills going to do? Is that it for quarterback, or what are they going to do? It could be. I suspect that they will either draft another one or sign another one in free agency, but don't expect the caliber to get much better than what they have now. This is what happens to be out there. There's a reason they went out and tried to sign Josh McCown, and of course McCown signed with the Cleveland Browns instead, and I thought it was funny. A lot of Bills fans were rejoicing about this dodged bullet. You know, that the Bills, yes, Josh McCown is going to the Browns. We don't have to worry about him playing for the Bills. And I was laughing at that sentiment because it doesn't get much better than that. That's the kind of quarterback you're looking at. And lo and behold, you get Matt Castle. So you're looking at that tier C quarterback that's out there, the guy who has some experience. He started a handful of games in the NFL, but is not going to be going to any Pro Bowls or reinventing himself. You're looking at that type of guy. So, Matt Castle is opening day quarterback. It's that or something similar. You mentioned C.J. Spiller earlier. I really like C.J. Spiller. He didn't do anything under Doug Marrone, but under Chan Gailey, he was one of those first-round picks in fantasy football. He was dynamic.
Where do you think CJ is going to end up?
Well, I think that the Jets are an intriguing answer to that
Reunited
question.
with Chan Gailey.
Chan Gailey's the offensive coordinator there. I think you could see, Blues Brothers situation of getting the band back together. Maybe Stevie Johnson even ends up with the New York Jets. But yeah, I think it's an intriguing scenario for CJ. The thing is that Chan Gailey really knew how to use him and got him out into space on the screen game, was able to mix in the run when the defense had its pass defense out on the field, was able to. That's why C.J. Spiller was able to rush for almost 6 yards a carry or whatever it was 2 years ago, 3 seasons ago, whatever it was, under Chan Gailey. And I think that if the Jets were to go after him, he would like the idea of being able to play for Chan again.
Well, the running backs under Doug Marrone, and I've even had Thurman Thomas has talked about this, none of them were happy with the run scheme that Marrone brought to the Bills. They all felt confined. They all felt more like plow horses than race horses. And I think it's shown more with CJ than anybody else because CJ was so inept in that offense.
Yes.
And it was ironic because Fred Jackson had a career-high reception, but CJ was rarely used in that role, and he's the guy you would have thought they would try to get out in the flat like Gailey was able to do with him.
A lot of head scratching going on that offense, and that's the reason why the Bills, well, that and some really poor offensive line play last year, but the Bills had their fewest rushing yards since the NFL went to a 16-game schedule. And there were some 14-game seasons in which the Bills were able to rush for a lot more yards than they had last year. It started with the line, but as you mentioned, the schemes, the play calling, the insistence on passing, Nate Hackett in his play calling really did handcuff that backfield last year. And Fred Jackson had a subpar season because of it, but he was still, I think it was more reflective of the Bills' offense as a whole than any kind of decline in play.
Last question. You've been around a long time. Rex Ryan has been with this team for a couple of months. Do you see a difference over there at One Bills Drive?
Oh, I do, but it's hard to differentiate what the difference is. Is it really Rex Ryan, or is it, this is the Pagula's first off season, so we're really seeing a dynamic that we're not familiar with. This is not a Ralph Wilson off season by any stretch of the imagination. So how much is Rex and his aggressiveness and his forward thinking? How much is it Doug Whaley with the handcuffs off? Maybe him being able to call his own shots more than he did when Russ Brandon was more involved in football operations, or when Ralph's hand was on his shoulder, or even going back to Buddy Nix. Or is this all Rex? Is it all the Pagulas? I don't know, but it's fun. It's a fun mix, and whether they win or not, we don't know, and we wouldn't know. Even if they're making every correct decision right now, we still won't know for several months if it's accurate.
You suit it up.
But it's a fun ride right now, isn't it?
Well, and if nothing else, the news conferences are going to be a hell of a lot funnier. I mean, Marrone wasn't exactly Shecky Green. I mean, Rex Ryan, I think he's about as entertaining as there is in the NFL when it comes time to doing his weekly.
You know what? Maybe Doug Marrone was Shecky Green, but to a 18-year-old. Somebody who doesn't know who's the Shecky Green reference would be like about as funny as Shecky.
There's a lot of people under 40 right now out there shaking. Who the hell is Shecky Green? Go to YouTube. Shecky was a pretty funny guy, Vegas Lounge Act. Tim, always a pleasure. You do a great job for the Buffalo News. I follow you all the time. What's your Twitter handle?
By Tim Graham, BY Tim Graham, just like the byline at the top of every story.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, we'll be back. Wrap up all sports right after this.